So I basically took my agency from zero to, I think it was 300 something thousand kroner a month in revenue. And then like 100K of that was profit every month. So it's like, it sounded so stupid to not run it anymore.
Yeah. Welcome to this episode. In this episode, we have a very special guest. This guest is Morten Gilje. He's an entrepreneur, a marketing specialist, and an e-commerce coach. He has built several businesses and is a successful entrepreneur by the age of 21. He's a master at sales and is passionate about helping individuals with branding and marketing. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
And so can you take me a little bit back to your story and how you got into this e-commerce and marketing and entrepreneurship?
Well, so it started with me. I went to school. I was playing football or soccer, if you're from America, and that was my life. So that was what I wanted to do my whole life. But then me and my friends started a clothing brand at the age of 16. And long story short, we failed. We didn't really sell that much, but we dug into the marketing side of it and we tried to figure it out, but we didn't. So it left me with, I was just a bit annoyed about not making it. So yeah, I just went down the rabbit hole of looking into more of how you can sell online, marketing, e-commerce. I started doing drop shipping, and then I started a agency, which I ran for 2.5 years and did really well. But it wasn't really my style, because I feel like you go into stuff because there's something you want out of it. And for me, that was just proving to myself that I could make money online and helping others with my service. But then I just wanted to focus on my e-commerce brands and being a coach, as you said, for Netthandel Academy, which is an academy where we help people that want to go into e-commerce and stuff. So that's a long story short.
Yeah. And so that was funnel media, right? And I heard a story about like you, when you were first starting out and you were just calling different people and trying to get their business, right? And so if you could tell me, I heard the story about the sushi restaurant and how you got that deal. Can you go into detail
research
there?
Yeah. When I started my agency, I registered the business at the last year of high school, where in Norway we have something called Russ. You're like, you're supposed to go party and stuff, and everybody else did that. But I started my business and I started researching how to run my agency. So when summer came around, I started hitting the phone, started cold calling, didn't get much success, but I called a bunch of businesses. I even went in physical. So I just parked outside the business, went inside, but they weren't interested because I didn't know anything about sales. But I had the guts to go in there, but I soon realized that's not very effective. And I was borrowing my car from my parents when they didn't use it, and that wasn't that often. So I started doing cold calling, and I called this guy I knew about the sushi place, called him 5 times, he didn't pick up. And then I was eating lunch and I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna call him one more time. And he picked up. He was very easy on the phone and he said that we can have a meeting. We had the meeting. My pitch was way off. I didn't ask him questions. I was just telling him what I could do for them, instead of like, because you have to be like a doctor, you have to find out what they need before you can come with your solution. So, and then I pitched the price. He said it was too much. He kind of laughed at me, but he saw this entrepreneur in me that was trying to do something, and he really liked that. So in the beginning, you just have to sell yourself. You can't really sell your service, because he knew I didn't have a lot of experience. And yeah, I went on a vacation because he said he still needed to think about it. And then I got a message when I landed in Ios in Greece that it was a deal. So my vacation was very good because it was my first client, and went home, signed the client, and that was the start. And I only had that client for 3 months until I got my next one. And that was like a grind for 7 months. And I was still at like doing like 20,000 kroner to 30,000 kroner a month. spent all the money I made the first half year on a course on Facebook ads, and then I switched over to e-commerce, helping e-commerce brands with marketing.
And I think that's super important. Like if you, because you said you reinvested that money back in yourself when you were making money, because
Yeah.
I think that's super important in the beginning. And yeah, it's like, it's super cool and it's super fun when you get that first sale, and it's kind of like you created nothing to something. And especially with when in the beginning you can't show your references and the previous your work you've done, and so you got to just sell yourself in the beginning. And so
Totally.
during that, what was that moment when you decided to jump and take that kind of faith in yourself, and what made you go for it? Because I think so many people are scared to do it. And so I was just curious, was there a specific moment where you just took that opportunity?
To be honest, I think it was gradual, but because when you go to school, there's a lot of like your friends, your family, and even your teachers. They always indicate that you should go to school and study. That's like the main. That's like the normal thing to do. I knew that all my life, like school is not that fun for me because I couldn't really express myself the way I wanted to. I didn't like the subjects we were learning. A lot of people are just like accepting the subjects that you learn, and then they think that it's important. But I was never that interested in it. So I started reading books, and I just gradually understood that there's a different path, which led me down to wanting to start my agency. While I was still interested in e-commerce before, because I did drop shipping and I had my clothing brand, but my mental game was not there yet. I didn't know what I was doing. So I started reading books, and once I got one client and then my second client, I gradually understood like, holy shit, one client can pay the same that my job at like a shoe store was paying, because I worked at like a shoe store,
Yeah,
and that's just one client, and I'm sitting at home just doing some ads.
super
So
cool.
it was gradual, but I've always been very like, if I really want to do something, I decide to do it. So when I played football, I was practicing 2 or 3 times a week. That was my life. So I just decided that I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to be successful at it. And once you just eliminate all the other options, school, whatever, then you can just focus on it, and you will succeed if you just give it enough time.
So during that period when you're first starting out, and it's like there's a lot of fear, and like you told with school, there's a lot of just you get presented a certain path, and then you're expected to just follow that, and you don't have any other options. And that's why I really have that podcast, to show people that you can do something else. And so during that period, what was the most difficult thing you kind of mentally had to overcome?
Good question. I always believe, I think this is, it comes like what I'm going to say now is probably not going to be the same for other people because it's going to be very personal. I've always been very like naturally confident in what I can do, but at the same time you still doubt because you don't have an experience. So the most like difficult thing to overcome was just believing in myself that I could figure out how to deliver results for my clients, because in my case I was selling myself and my service, that I'm going to help you with marketing, for instance. And if you're tracked on results, you have to deliver results. So for me, it was trying to distance myself from the result, but be more interested in the input, so not the output. So I had to understand it, because if you don't understand it, you just base your life on outputs. So you think, okay, I fail at this, and you just like hone in on that instead of like, why did I fail at it? So if you do your best, but it's a bad output, like that's fine. You did
Hmm.
your best. But if you're honest with yourself and you didn't do your best, then how can you improve that so that you get a better output? That was something I had to figure out once I started, because it was very stressful once you had like 5 clients and you had to deliver on all of them. I had to understand that I'm not going to deliver the best results for every client. I'm going to lose some clients, and just understanding that's
Yeah.
normal. That was really relieving for me, because then you can stress down, you can focus on what's important.
Yeah, and it's like if you're not that attached to the outcome, you just focus on the process instead. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super key.
And,
And
I'm
so
still I'm still trying to work on that, because it's very easy to just focus on the
yeah,
output.
and just the outcome, and you want to present the best results for the client. Yeah, for sure. And so now you're kind of I don't know if you're finished with funnel media, but you're growing into something else with kind of the coaching thing and the e-commerce and branding with the, what's it called, the Cool Commerce Group.
Cool Commerce Group, yeah.
So could you go a little bit in detail what is it you guys are doing, and kind of yeah, what is it all about?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, my agency, I'm not really running that anymore. I did it for 2.5 years, but it wasn't something that I was passionate about. So it was a hard decision for me. I spent like 3 months just talking to people and trying to figure out what I should do with it because it was making a lot of money. Um, I don't like to share numbers to brag, but I like to share numbers to give a perspective of things. So I basically took my agency from zero to, I think it was 300 something thousand kroner a month in revenue. And then like 100K of that was profit every month. So it's like, it sounded so stupid to not run it anymore, but I had to be honest with myself because it wasn't something that I was so passionate about. What I was passionate about was Vivvoe, which was the brand that I'm running, one of the brands we're running, which is blue light blocking glasses. Um, that I started in 2020 with a guy called Henrik. Now Henrik and Emil are my partners in it, and we have an investor called Frode. And that was more appealing to me, to build a brand and to build something sustainable that can last. Like just look at I don't know, your favorite clothing brand, like a big brand like that. That's so appealing to me. So I knew that if I ran the agency, I wouldn't have time to focus on that as well as I wanted to. But I still wanted to help people because I think that if I weren't an entrepreneur, I would probably be a teacher because I love teaching. That's why I wanted to start the Netthandel Academia, which is the academy. So I can still help people build their brands, but I don't have to run the ads for them like the agency. So I still got to fulfill it. But yeah, so we're building a big platform. And you ask what we're doing with Cool Commerce Group. We have different brands. I have a clothing brand now with the guy. Yeah, we have a lot of brands that we run, and I figured out like we probably have too much going on right now, so we need to find out what's the essential stuff to work on, and then just hone in on that.
Yeah, it's so you're kind of highly successful with all business, and you make a lot of money, and then suddenly kind of you feel that you're not as passionate about it, the thing, and then yeah, that's a super difficult decision because it's not very logical. It's not very smart to just quit a business that's doing very well and then switch to something completely different and do something you're passionate about. So I think that's super cool that you followed that true calling instead of just doing something you just made money from.
Yeah, I mean, as I said in the beginning, every time you start a business, you have to understand why you do it. And the reason why I started Funnel Media, the agency, it was my first real business. It was just because I wanted to prove to myself that I can make money, and I wanted to learn a lot. And then once I've done that, it's like there's nothing more. Like I had a choice. Either I could build a big agency where there's going to be clients coming in and out every second, and it's just going to be like it's not fulfilling for me. So I just had to be true to myself and do what I
Yeah,
wanted to do. So now I just want to build cool brands and help others do the same. Like it's that simple. Build cool brands, help other people do the same.
awesome. So what's your vision for your current business, like long term, same
Which one?
5 years?
So for my business stuff or just like one of the
Just
businesses?
I would say in combination of the Cool Commerce Group and also with Vivvoe, the blue light blocking glasses. Like, yeah, what's your like overall vision for the company?
So the vision for Vivvoe, which is like the main brand that we have right now that's doing the best, is to build them like one of the coolest and most including glasses companies in the world. Like we want to say in the world, even though you have to, a vision should be something you're never gonna accomplish, but you're willing to die trying to make it. So building like a super big glasses brand with Cool Commerce Group, it's the strategy there is to like invest in smaller e-commerce brands or start e-commerce brands and just have a portfolio of a lot of e-commerce brands. And the vision for the academy is to, so in 5 years, I want people at high school to have the conversation like, what do you want to study? I'm going to BI. And then one guy says, I'm going to the Netthandel Academia. That's like
That's
my vision.
awesome.
I want it to be a cool school where we have a community and people can learn how to start their own e-commerce brand. And yeah, because there's no other place you can do it except YouTube.
Because it's kind of like you're creating the opportunity you didn't have, or the alternative to
Totally.
school, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like, because I think there's like the things I think we can agree on, like what we learn in school is not very practical, and you don't learn about sales, you don't learn about just money in general.
And you don't learn about yourself
Yeah,
either.
it's like there's and same with health. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think we have same vision there, but I haven't really heard anyone kind of create an academy that's maybe an alternative to the current like school system. So that's
Mm.
awesome. With especially with you're 21, right? And so has there been any challenges you had to face and overcome because of your age? Because I like, especially with business, you're dealing with clients, high successful people. And so has there been any challenges or something you had to deal with
Mm.
because of your age, maybe?
On one side, not really, because so if we talk like running in your own e-commerce brand, you don't really have to deal with the other people that are older than you. But if you have an agency, you're probably going to deal with a lot of people that are older than you. So first of all, I was doing social media and marketing, and older people don't know how to do it. They think that the younger people know how to do it. So you automatically kind of have this authority. But when you're dealing with business situations like contracts and deals and sales and stuff like that, you have to talk their language. You have to be honest with yourself if you're mature enough to have those conversations. And for me, I just made friends with I have a lot of friends that are older than me. So 30 plus, 40 plus. I have Frode here. He's 40 something, and like we get along so well. So I knew I had to be friends with and talk to people that are a lot older than me in order for me to kind of like pick up the language and understand how they think so that I can put it into my business. And also reading a lot of books has helped. So I wouldn't really say that I faced any challenges because I understood that it was very important from the start. So I attacked it very early. Um, but yeah, if you're in marketing, you probably have the authority anyways, unless you're like 12, because then, yeah, you might be good at social media, but you might not have the business sense yet.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. So so because of your niche or kind of your area, you don't have to deal with that level of people. And you're very social also. But a different question in terms of just when you're kind of younger and when you're starting out, what is some common mistakes you see people when they try to make a business and kind of when they try to make that startup work?
So if we talk about e-commerce, a lot of people start at the end of like the marketing side. So they think that if they know how to set up a Shopify store, or if they know how to run ads, that they have the key. And then they find a product. And then the product they find is just a product, like they rush the process just to market it quick enough. So either you pick a product that you don't really have any passion for. So once you meet obstacles, you just quit and then you try to find another product. Instead, start with a problem that you want to have a solution for, and then either make the product or find the product and white label it, and then the marketing things come. So that's what e-commerce. When it comes to business in general, I think a lot of mistakes come from just not deciding that this is what you want to do. You have to decide, like really decide and believe that you're going to make it. Because if you have this thought of like, I'm probably going to go study in 2 years, then it's like, that's stupid, because then you always have something to fall back on. And once you have challenges, you're going to be like, okay, I'll just go do this. And then your entrepreneurial dream is just pushed away. So you have to really
I heard
decide.
you didn't like plan Bs.
I don't like plan. Well, it's sometimes a plan B could be good, but that's more specific stuff. Like if I can't have this solution on my website, then plan B is this. But for your own vision, you should only have a plan A. Like if there's something you really know you want to do, and first of all, you have to find out what to do, what you want to do, what your purpose is. But once you find out what your purpose is, every time you do something that's not in line with your purpose, you're going to feel like shit. And people are going to notice that, because you're not going to be yourself. You're not going to be true to what you really want to push to. So I have look, I have this. I'm a weirdo, so I have pages of myself where I just like a vision board, and I just wrote down what I'm gonna do with my life, and I'm gonna every decision I make is gonna be in line with that. If not, then I'm gonna punch myself and be like, dude, wake up.
Yeah, because I think people think it's like very accidental that people end up where they end up. And
Mm,
by defining what you want and defining that vision, I think it's going to get a lot easier to see what's aligned and what's not aligned.
yeah,
Yeah. And also with your product, with the blue blocking glasses, my guess is you're probably passionate about sleep and you use the product yourself. And I think, like you said, with e-commerce, a lot of people just have a random product and they get bored of it and it doesn't work and they quit. And so, yeah, I think I can kind of see
the,
that in Vivvoe, that
yeah,
it's like you're passionate about the product itself.
for sure. And just yesterday, I have a lot of messages coming in my Instagram with people trying to start the e-commerce brand, and it's so much fun helping them. But then I tell them to like start with a problem and then find a solution for it that you're passionate about. But I get these messages where they ask me if this salad cutter, where they cut salad more efficiently, if that's going to be a winning product. I'm like, maybe, maybe not, but is that something you want to like? Do you want to make it big? Do you see yourself working with that for 5 years? And they're like, not really. So yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, Vivo, I'm interested in sleep. I like fashion as well, so it's kind of a good mix.
Yeah.
So right now we have blue light blocking glasses, but we want to sell sunlight glasses, sunglasses, I mean sunlight glasses, and normal glasses, and then we have to design different products, and that's going to be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's super key. And so, because it sounds like you are very interested in people and kind of understanding
Mm.
why people do what they do and what makes people tick. And so, do you know why you're so interested in people?
First of all, like um yeah, I love sales, and I think this comes down to personality, my personality type. So I've taken a lot of personality tests over like this last 3 years, and I get the same thing every time. And my personality trait is called like a protagonist if you use 16personalities.com, which is like a natural leader, and you have a lot of emotions, but as long as you can control them, you're very good with people because you kind of like can catch the if you're in a room with a lot of people, you can kind of see if somebody's feeling bad or something like that. And that's just me. I love people, and I love to understand people. And I think that's why I'm pretty good at sales. So yeah, what was the question? Like why I think I'm interested in
Yeah,
people?
because it's like it's not very common to be that interested in people like that, and same with sales. Like it's because I have the same passion, but I don't see it very often in other people. And so yeah, and you kind of
Mm.
explained it with the 16 personalities test, right? You've taken that a
And
couple of times.
yeah, but also if I look at for my own sake, the business I'm in, if I'm going to try to sell somebody on my academy, and first of all, we only take in people that we really believe we can help. But if I really believe I can help somebody, but they're on the edge, I want to be able to understand why they're under the edge. And then once I find out if they're on the edge, then I bring in my leadership and motivation. Like I have a real talk with them. So so if it's the money that's holding them back, then I ask them, how much money do you have? Like we go straight to the source, and because a lot of people like to put like this paint a lot of the stuff, but instead of going straight to the source.
Mm.
But if you can do that, like people are more than willing to open up if they trust you. So first you build the bondage, and then they trust you, and then they can open more up, and then you get the real answers.
Yeah, so
So
you
it's
go
just
you go to the core of what is their problem, right? And why do they
yeah,
have that problem?
yeah, you always have to go to the core, because if people say that they don't have the money, they're not interested, they have to think about it. I ask them, why do you have to think about it? I'm not like, okay, that's fine. I ask them, why do you have to think about it? Well, because it's a lot of money. So, but do you believe that you want to join do you really want to join the program and you have the money? They say yes. Then I say, okay, so if you push it 1 week, you're basically saying that your money is more worth than the time. And then they start thinking,
Yeah,
and it's, yeah,
because I heard you say don't think, act, and I totally agree.
yeah, yeah.
That's and
Just
also
go with
with
your gut feeling.
Yeah, for sure. With your kind of personality, right? You describe yourself. Would you describe yourself as a patient guy? Because I heard you talked about you used to be not very patient with different stuff, and so have you been able to change that? And if so, how have you been able to change that? Because I think
Mm.
that's a big problem for a lot of people, especially our age, with patience. And so, yeah, can you go a little bit deep on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I used to be very impatient. I always wanted to do stuff now because I hate dead time. I hate stuff not happening. But then you have to understand that time is also something like a lot of stuff can happen with time. So if you just give it enough time, then then you just have to wait sometimes. So I try to be more patient by meditating, and just like being grateful for what I have, because a lot of the times when I'm not patient is because I want something to happen, aka I want something. And every time you want something, you're in a state of mind that you don't have enough. But if you're practice being grateful for stuff, like you write down what you're grateful for every day, you're in a state of mind that you have enough. So if something doesn't happen today, it's fine because you have enough anyways. So I try to practice that, and yeah, but it's hard because sometimes you just really want something to happen, and you don't really know how to deal with it. But just be grateful for what you have and understand that time is also a resource, meaning like it has its effect.
Yeah, for sure. Like patience, I think is just the number one thing you can do, especially
But
when starting out.
I mean, have patience with others to a certain point, of course. Um, but with yourself, you just have to be patient. There's a word, I don't know who said it, but impatient with actions and patient with results.
Hmm.
It kind of goes back to the input output stuff. So
Yeah, and I
yeah,
heard you say it takes 9 months to give birth to a baby. Kind of that's
yeah,
the whole concept. And
yeah, yeah,
yeah, especially with social media, right? People want it instant. People want
Mm,
that instant gratification, and so
yeah.
it's like we don't learn patience. And you mentioned meditating, right? It's like doing
Mm.
different stuff like that, and seeing that things things takes time, but then eventually it gets better.
And yeah, it takes time to build a business. So a lot of people think that because of they're used to getting everything just by
Mm,
snap of the fingers, they think that it's the same with business, because they see YouTube videos of people like making that much within 1 week, and it's all bullshit because that 1 week, yeah, maybe they made that much money in 1 week, but they have so much more experience, which made it that easy. So yeah, because I could probably start my agency again and get back to like 100K a month within 2 months if I wanted to, because I know the steps and I have the
mm,
mindset and stuff like that. But then if I were to make a YouTube video how I made 100K in 2 months with my agency, and people would think that that's realistic for starting out, it's just bullshit.
mm. Yeah, that's big. And you kind of that's super key though to get people to understand you have the skill set and so you can build it again if you want to. Like, and that's
Mm.
why I think it's so important. What you did in the beginning is to reinvest back into yourself instead of
And,
just buying stuff.
and that's also why I mean starting businesses and running businesses, even if you fail, it's not a risk, because as long as you learn from it, you can go back and do it. Like you can try again, and if you already did something well but then you lose it all, you can build it again. It just takes more time.
Mm, that's key. With like especially with failure because I struggled with this in the beginning where I believed like my identity was attached to my failures. And so if
Mhm.
I failed, I was bad, right? And so have you been able to kind of change that? And so when you were starting out and failed, how have you kind of developed that mindset of
Mm.
changing your failures to kind of successes?
Mm. First of all, like sometimes it is your fault, right? So you have to be honest with yourself if it was something you did, or if it was an external factor. Either way, it's not a big deal. If it was an external factor, it wasn't your fault. If it was your fault, then you have something you can learn from it. So if you so you just have to, like, it's just about self-awareness, like understanding why things happen. But yeah, as you say, don't connect it to your identity, because a result of something is not your identity. Your identity is like what you think about your soul, how you act with other people and stuff like that. So if you let that get into you, then maybe, yeah, it has an effect on your personality. But it's you just have to understand that either it happened for some other reason, or if it was yourself, you can always learn from it.
Mm,
Like we're all here to learn. So
for sure. With your kind of motivation, I heard you talked about like the driving force for you to kind of strive more and improve. You talk about the concept of desperation versus inspiration.
mm,
And so can you go a little bit in detail on how how have you been using that for yourself?
mm. Yeah. So especially here in Norway, like if you think about a person that is in a very bad situation, he has very little money, can barely like have a roof over his head, has a family to take care of. He is desperate. Like that's all he is. He's desperate. So that will drive him to do stuff that a guy that has everything will not do. So in Norway, if we know that we can just study, have a okay job, have enough money over our head, and if everything goes to shit, we have a solution for that, NAV and stuff like that. It's hard to be desperate about something to get something. But in that case, you need to get inspired by something. So for me, like when I was in school, yeah, the easy way would just go to study and then get a job, and yeah, that would be fine. But I got inspired by, of course, some of my inner like DNA wants to do something, so that also helps. But I got inspired by the books I read, by other people doing stuff that I wanted to do. So you have to be inspired. So in the case, if I feel like I'm not motivated to do something, then I try to get desperate by either like um just looking at my, yeah, if I want to get desperate, I try to like I don't know. A good example, when I was in school, I started to understand that school was not something for me at all. So I was like desperate to get out of it. That's why I registered my business, just went at it. But now that I kind of have things going on and stuff like that, I always have to be inspired. So that's why I have these pages where I inspire myself to like what I want to achieve. I read more books. I connect with people like you, for instance. I connect with people that have done super cool stuff to be inspired. So yeah, that's kind of what I meant with it.
Yeah, yeah. Because inspiration comes and goes, right? And sometimes you're inspired because I think that's a great tool to use. Kind of use that desperation and maybe so I listened to a guy, he talked about how you kind of people visualize their best life, but then you should also visualize the worst outcome if you follow a
Mm,
certain path, right?
mm,
And so that for me also I use that desperation where if I don't do this, I'm gonna end up there. I'm gonna end up not where I want and where, and that for me really kicks in that desperation to act and do things even though there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of insecurity, right?
mm, for sure.
And so you talked about you have different coaches, you read books, you do a lot of stuff, and you kind of reinvest back into yourself. And you mentioned also you should not get advice from people that don't have what you want. For example, you with your parents, I is what your mom is a teacher and your dad works
Mm,
in oil, I think.
yeah.
And so you
Mm,
mentioned like I shouldn't get business advice from them because they don't have a business, right?
mm,
And so who is someone you have looked up to and is kind of the person that has the things that you want?
mm. When I get that question, I always say that I don't have one specific person that I look up to, because I want to be myself and I want to build my own identity. So I don't want to be like anybody else. I don't want to be like Elon Musk just because he's rich and he's going to try to go to the moon. That's not me. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't like to take, like, if, yeah, my mom, if she came with like, oh, you shouldn't charge that much for your first like your client, that's a lot of money, blah blah blah, and I'm like, if I let that get to my head, it's just coming from her like point of view because she's a teacher. And she, yeah, her salary is like maybe 3 times more than one client of mine. So if I get 3 clients, and like, it doesn't make sense for her.
Mm,
um but you can always learn something from all people. But if there's a specific thing you're trying to learn, you have to go to somebody that's already done it because they understand it. Don't go to somebody that's just read about it. Go to somebody that's failed at it and then made it happen. um yeah.
And so some last questions I wanted to go over. Um, if you had to kind of do it all over again, and you kind of probably you've learned a lot from your failures, what would you have done differently today?
Maybe just stick to, once you find out, like once you get results from one thing. So let's pretend like you already started like either e-commerce agency, whatever, and you start seeing results with one thing. So what I did is I kind of like got complacent. So I was like, oh, I'm super happy. I have 3 clients now. And I knew that the reason I got those clients was because I did this action, which was reaching out to clients. So for me, I wish with my agency that I just kept doing more of that, and just focus on the income producing activities and just sticking to what's actually essential. Um, when it
Yeah,
comes
that's
to
key.
when it comes to the e-commerce brands, mm, I don't know. Yeah, just if you want to start with e-commerce, don't look at it. Don't look at drop shipping really. Just that might be a good way to start and test something, but look at e-commerce as like, okay, I want to build something that's going to last for 10 plus years, because then every decision you make is in line with that. So it's not just putting up a website and trying to sell something. You're trying to build a brand that has a meaning behind it. And yeah, just have that mindset once when you go into something, that it's just not a quick money thing,
Mm.
because then you're going to get bored by it. That's with everything. Like you have to have a real passion for it. And well, you don't really need to be that passionate about it, but you have to be passionate about what it's going to become. So if you want to sell salad cutters, and if you're not that passionate about that product, at least you have to be passionate about like the business of it, like, you
Mm.
know. So it's you have to understand why you do something. So that's my just understanding, trying to
Yeah,
figure out why you do something. That's my answer.
cool. I think that's huge though, with kind of focusing on one thing.
Mm.
It's like I read this book where I think it's called The One Thing. So it's kind of that's the concept of
Mm.
not having too much things, because we're very like you're talking about what is the most high value thing you were doing was kind of calling clients and getting clients.
Mm.
And so that was the one thing you did, but then everything else was maybe not as effective as doing that thing. So that's big.
Yeah. Yeah, I was majoring in minor things in the beginning, because I thought that small things mattered, but it didn't. Like my website didn't matter. It was just, how can I get a client, and how can I deliver results for the client? That was all I needed to focus on. Don't
Because
overcomplicate
people
stuff.
spend too much time on names, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like just random stuff like that, and the logo and the colors and the
Mm.
website, and yeah, that's a part of it, and you're gonna spend some time doing that. But
Mm.
like you said, it's just doing those few things that's gonna create the most results.
Yeah.
It's big. And so the last question I have, this is maybe a little bit difficult, but like if you had a general message that you could give like younger people and the younger generation that is starting out, what would that
Mm.
be?
Take a week by yourself and try to think about why okay, let's say you know you want to do something now. You have, like, let's say you're in high school or you're studying, and you have this idea of what you should want to do with your life. Take a week off and try to understand why you think like that. So maybe it's because your parents told you too many times. Maybe it's because your friends told you too many times. Maybe it's because you saw this video that made you think, and then that your pattern of thinking just switched into a rat hole, and then you like think that's the way you want to go. Take time for yourself and try to figure out what you really want to do. Take a personality test. I know it's not going to be accurate, like totally accurate, but it's going to give you an indication of why you act like you do, and try to understand what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, and yeah, do that. Delete Snapchat. Don't spend too much time on social media, and try to and be available all the time. So be less available. You can always be available by somebody can call you, like if it's really important, but don't spend time sending snaps and stuff like that. Um, and if you want to start something, since this is kind of about entrepreneurship, I have a lot of general tips that I have for everyone. But for entrepreneurs, just if you're going to start out, doesn't matter what you're going to start, but give it at least 1 year of undivided attention. Like, you're just think about, like, this is the last year of your life, and if you don't make it happen, you're going to die. Just have this mentality about it, because then you're going to look at all the different options to how you can make it happen. And last one, ask stupid questions and connect with people, even people that you think you can't reach because they're bigger than you and older than you. Just reach out to them and ask them stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. So what's your Snapchat so people can add you? No, I'm kidding.
I deleted it 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's key, those things. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And if people where can people find you? What socials? And I would highly recommend to, if people wants to get into branding and e-commerce, to kind of reach out. And so, yeah, where can people find you?
So I said right now that you shouldn't spend too much time on Instagram and on social media, but I have Instagram because I connect with people there. So probably that would be the best. So it's Gilje Morten, so my last name first and then my first name, just in one word. And yeah, probably the best way.
Yeah, and also, if you mentioned the website of the company, what's it called?
Yeah, netthandelakademiet.no. So you can probably, that's in Norwegian. So in English, it would be ecommerceacademy.no, but you just have to do it in the Norwegian.
Yeah, I'll put the link, so don't worry. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to talk to the audience next week, and then see you soon. Bye-bye.